Whiskers was a very fluffy ginger cat. He had big green eyes, full of curiosity. He lived with a kind lady named Sarah. Sarah loved Whiskers very much indeed. But Whiskers had a secret, a big one. He did not just dream of chasing birds or batting at balls of wool. Oh no, Whiskers dreamt of pots and pans and spoons. He wanted to be a chef, a great chef. It was a most unusual dream for a cat. Whiskers loved watching Sarah in the kitchen. He would sit on a little stool, very still. His tail would twitch with great excitement. He watched her chop vegetables so neatly. He watched her stir sauces in shiny pans. He saw her bake cakes that smelled so sweet. Whiskers paid close attention to everything. He learned by watching day after day. He was a very observant and clever cat. He knew cooking was his true calling. Sometimes when Sarah was not looking, Whiskers practiced. His first attempts were a little bit messy. Once he tried to make a fish pie. The flour went everywhere, like a snowstorm. Another time he tried to knead dough, but the dough stuck to his paws terribly. He looked like a sticky, doughy monster. But Whiskers did not give up, not he. He licked his paws clean and tried again. He was a very determined little cook. He also learned from the television box. Sarah sometimes watched cooking programs. Whiskers would sit right in front of it, his eyes glued to the chefs on the screen. He saw them whisk and flip and fry. He meowed softly at their clever tricks. He thought, if they can do it, so can I. He memorized recipes in his clever cat brain. He knew all about herbs and spices too. Soon he felt ready for a big challenge. One sunny morning, Whiskers had an idea, a truly wonderful and grand idea. Sarah worked very hard every single day. She often came home feeling quite tired. Whiskers decided he would cook her dinner. A surprise dinner, made with all his love. He would show her what a clever cat he was. He purred with excitement at the thought it would be the best dinner ever, a feast fit for his favorite human. He tiptoed into the kitchen very quietly. Sarah was out, so the coast was clear. He had planned his menu very carefully. The main course would be baked salmon with a side of tiny steamed carrots and perhaps a little creamy sauce. He knew Sarah loved fish very much. It was a perfect choice for his special meal. He rubbed against the fridge, feeling proud. His culinary adventure was about to begin. First, Whiskers needed his special equipment. He had a tiny apron, red and white. Sarah had sewn it for him as a joke, but Whiskers wore it with great seriousness. He dragged a small wooden stool to the counter. It was a bit of a struggle, but he managed. He hopped up, ready to begin his work. He washed his paws very carefully in the sink. A good chef always has clean paws. He was ready to make magic happen. He took the lovely pink salmon from the fridge. It smelled so fresh and delicious to him. He resisted the urge to take a nibble. This was for Sarah, his special human. He found the herbs he needed, dill and parsley. He sprinkled them gently over the fish. A little pinch of salt, a tiny bit of pepper. He hummed a happy little cooking tune. He was in his element, a true artist. The kitchen was his very own studio. Whiskers was now very busy indeed. He moved about the kitchen with purpose. He found some small sweet carrots. He needed to chop them into tiny pieces. His little paws were surprisingly good at this. He held his tiny knife with great care. Snip, snip, snip went the carrots. They fell neatly onto his little chopping board. He was making good progress on his meal. He felt like a real professional chef. Next he wanted to make a creamy sauce, something light to go with the salmon. He had seen Sarah make it many times. He found a small jar of fresh cream, but the lid was on very, very tight. Whiskers tried to twist it with his paws. He grunted with effort, his whiskers twitching. He put all his small cat strength into it. The jar just would not budge at all. It was a very stubborn jar of cream. Suddenly, with a mighty heave, the jar slipped. It flew out of his paws. Oh dear me, it landed on the floor with a soft splat. Cream went absolutely everywhere, like a white waterfall. It splashed onto the cupboards, the floor, and Whiskers. Whiskers was covered from his nose to his tail. He looked like a little white snow cat. He blinked his eyes, surprised by the mess. For a moment he just sat there, dripping. What a very sticky situation this was. But Whiskers was not a cat to be defeated, not by a mischievous jar of cream, oh no. He shook himself, sending droplets flying. Then he began to lick himself clean. It took quite a while, for cream is sticky. But slowly his ginger fur reappeared. He then tidied up the kitchen as best he could. He finished making the sauce with new cream. Soon the lovely smell of baking fish filled the air. Despite the mishap, the meal was almost ready. Sarah came home later that evening. She opened the door, feeling weary from her day. "Whiskers, I'm home!" she called out. Then she sniffed the air, a puzzled look on her face. What was that absolutely wonderful smell? It smelled like delicious fish and herbs. It was coming from the kitchen, it seemed. She wondered if she had left something cooking, but she was sure she had not. Curiosity pulled her towards the kitchen. She pushed open the kitchen door slowly, and then she gasped, her eyes wide with shock. The little kitchen table was beautifully set. There was a plate with a perfectly cooked salmon. Tiny carrots were arranged neatly beside it. A little jug of creamy sauce sat there, too. A single candle flickered on the table. It looked like a meal from a fancy restaurant. She could not believe what she was seeing. It was the most amazing sight. And there, sitting proudly beside the table, was Whiskers. He had his little red and white apron on. His fur was mostly clean, though a bit fluffy. He looked up at Sarah with his big green eyes. He let out a soft, happy meow, as if to say, "Dinner is served, my dear." He nudged the plate gently with his head. He looked very pleased with himself indeed. He had worked so hard on this special meal. He hoped Sarah would like his cooking. Sarah stared at Whiskers, then at the meal. Tears of joy welled up in her eyes. "Whiskers," she whispered, "did you do all this?" The cat purred loudly, rubbing against her legs. She carefully sat down at the table. She took a bite of the salmon. It was divine. The carrots were sweet, the sauce was perfect. "Oh, Whiskers, you are the most amazing cat." She scooped him up and gave him a big hug. It was the best, most surprising dinner of her life.